She was chosen by a Saudi prince for luxury. Her dream ended in a coffin. True crime. The last Instagram post that Rachel Morgan would ever upload showed her standing on the marble terrace of a palatial Jeddah mansion, wearing a flowing white dress that caught the Arabian sunset as she gazed toward the Red Sea with what appeared to be pure contentment radiating from her smile. The caption read, "Sometimes dreams do come true. Thank you, universe, for bringing me exactly where I'm meant to be." The image, posted on November 18th, 2023, garnered over 3,000 likes and hundreds of comments from friends and followers who envied what seemed to be Rachel's fairy tale transformation from Miami hotel event planner to the cherished companion of Saudi royalty. 6 days later, her body would be discovered in a private medical facility outside Riyadh, officially listed as a suicide, though the circumstances surrounding her death would raise questions that powerful interests would work to ensure were never fully answered. The 27-year-old, who had spent months posting about manifesting luxury and finding her prince, had instead become another casualty of Prince Faisal Al Mansour's carefully concealed pattern of violence against Western women who were lured to Saudi Arabia through promises of marriage, wealth, and protection that masked a reality of systematic abuse and lethal control. The journey that brought Rachel to her tragic end had begun 8 months earlier during Prince Faisal's visit to Miami, where his entourage had booked an entire floor of the luxury hotel where Rachel worked as an event coordinator. Her natural charisma and professional expertise in managing high-end gatherings had caught his attention during the planning meetings for his elaborate party, celebrating a successful business venture, leading to private conversations that revealed her fascination with Middle Eastern culture and her dreams of experiencing the kind of lifestyle that only unlimited wealth could provide. The courtship that developed over the following weeks was conducted with the kind of lavish attention that Rachel had never experienced, featuring daily deliveries of exotic flowers, expensive jewelry, and handwritten notes in elegant Arabic calligraphy that were translated to express sentiments about her exceptional beauty and intelligence that made her worthy of joining the most exclusive circles of international society. The gifts were accompanied by invitations to join him for weekend trips to New York, Los Angeles, and Dubai, where she was introduced to a world of private jets, 5-star accommodations, and social gatherings that included celebrities, dignitaries, and business leaders she had previously known only through magazine photos. The transformation in Rachel's lifestyle and social media presence was dramatic and immediate, documenting a progression from ordinary hotel worker to international jet setter that seemed to validate every manifestation, journal entry, and vision board she had created during her years of dreaming about escaping the financial limitations that had defined her family's middle-class existence. Her posts from this period showed designer clothing, Michelin-starred restaurants, and exclusive venues that represented everything she had believed would bring her the happiness and security that had seemed impossible to achieve through conventional career advancement. The proposal that Prince Faisal made during a romantic dinner in the Burj Khalifa was everything Rachel had envisioned, complete with a 10-carat diamond ring and promises about the life they would build together once she relocated to Saudi Arabia to begin the process of converting to Islam and learning about the cultural traditions she would need to understand as a member of his family. His explanations about Saudi marriage customs and the legal requirements for foreign women created a narrative of cultural sensitivity and gradual integration that masked the systematic isolation and control that would begin as soon as she arrived in his homeland. Jessica Lane, Rachel's closest friend since college, had expressed increasing concern about the rapid progression of the relationship and the dramatic changes in Rachel's behavior and priorities that seemed to prioritize material luxury over the personal values and career goals that had previously defined her identity. Jessica's warnings about the dangers of abandoning her independence for someone she had known for only a few months were consistently dismissed as jealousy or inability to understand the unique opportunity that Prince Faisal represented for someone willing to embrace adventure and cultural growth. The final weeks before Rachel's departure for Saudi Arabia were marked by increasingly elaborate gifts and promises that served to reinforce her emotional investment in the relationship, while also creating practical dependencies that would make it difficult for her to change her mind If doubts arose about the wisdom of relocating to a country where women's rights and legal protections were significantly different from what she had experienced in the United States, the goodbye party that Rachel's Miami friends organized was both celebration and wake, as many attendees sensed that they might never see her again, despite her promises to maintain regular contact and her plans to return for visits once she had settled into her new life as Saudi royalty. The emotional intensity of these farewells reflected subconscious recognition that Rachel was embarking on a journey that was far more dangerous than her romantic fantasies had led her to believe. The flight to Riyadh that would seal Rachel's fate was documented through a series of social media posts that showed her excitement about beginning what she believed would be the most wonderful chapter of her life, surrounded by luxury and protected by someone who possessed the wealth and power to ensure that all her dreams would finally be realized through their partnership and eventual marriage. The reality that awaited Rachel in Saudi Arabia bore no resemblance to the romantic narrative that had been carefully constructed to exploit her vulnerabilities and ensure her cooperation with a plan that was designed not to fulfill her dreams, but to provide Prince Faisal with complete control over another beautiful Western woman whose independence and potential for escape would be systematically eliminated through isolation, psychological manipulation, and ultimately violence when other forms of control proved insufficient. The arrival of Rachel Morgan at King Abdulaziz International Airport in Jeddah marked the beginning of a systematic isolation process that Prince Faisal had perfected through years of experience with Western women who were lured to Saudi Arabia through romantic manipulation and promises of luxury that masked intentions far more sinister than the fairy tale narratives he used to secure their cooperation and trust. The airport reception included a convoy of luxury vehicles, uniformed security personnel, and VIP treatment that reinforced Rachel's belief that she was indeed entering a world of unprecedented privilege and protection. The compound where Rachel was taken was presented as a temporary residence where she could adjust to Saudi culture and begin her conversion process in a supportive environment, though the high walls, armed guards, and restricted access to communication devices revealed the true nature of her situation as a luxurious prison designed to prevent escape while maintaining the illusion of voluntary participation in cultural assimilation activities. The initial weeks of Rachel's stay were carefully orchestrated to maintain her enthusiasm about her new circumstances, while gradually implementing restrictions on her freedom that were presented as cultural necessities and temporary security measures that would be relaxed once she had completed her religious education and integration process. The systematic removal of her independence was so gradual that she initially interpreted the constraints as evidence of Prince Faisal's protective concern, rather than recognizing them as components of a deliberate captivity scheme. The religious instruction that Rachel received was designed not only to facilitate her conversion to Islam, but also to reinforce messages about female submission, obedience, and the importance of accepting male authority that would make her more compliant with Prince Faisal's increasingly controlling demands. The cultural education she underwent emphasized the privileges available to women who embraced traditional roles, while warning about the consequences faced by those who resisted or challenged established hierarchies and expectations. The communication restrictions that were gradually implemented included monitoring of her phone calls and internet access, with explanations about security concerns and cultural sensitivities that made it seem reasonable for Prince Faisal to oversee her contact with family and friends in the United States. The isolation from her support network was systematic and deliberate, designed to make her increasingly dependent on Prince Faisal's approval and protection, while eliminating potential sources of objective advice about her circumstances. Jessica Lane's attempts to maintain regular contact with Rachel were frustrated by increasing delays in responses, changes in communication patterns, and explanations about busy schedules and cultural restrictions that prevented normal conversation about personal concerns and experiences. The subtle but consistent decline in the quality and frequency of their communication created growing anxiety among Rachel's American friends and family, who sensed that something was wrong but lacked concrete evidence to justify intervention. The first signs of Prince Faisal's violent temper emerged when Rachel requested permission to make an unscheduled phone call to her father for his birthday, a reasonable request that was met with rage about her failure to understand the importance of maintaining communication, security, and her selfish disregard for the cultural adjustments she needed to make as part of her integration into Saudi society and her preparation for marriage into the royal family. The physical abuse that began as slapping and restraint during arguments escalated over the following weeks to include more serious violence that was always followed by elaborate apologies, expensive gifts, and promises that such incidents would never occur again once Rachel had completed her adjustment process and demonstrated her commitment to their relationship and her respect for his authority and cultural position. The medical attention that Rachel required following particularly severe episodes of violence was provided by private physicians who were bound by confidentiality agreements and financial incentives that ensured her injuries would not be reported to authorities who might investigate the circumstances of her treatment or question Prince Faisal about his relationship with his American guest. The psychological manipulation that accompanied the physical abuse included systematic undermining of Rachel's self-confidence and decision-making abilities, with Prince Faisal alternately presenting himself as her loving protector and her disappointed educator, who was trying to help her overcome the selfish and culturally inappropriate behaviors that made their relationship difficult and her integration into Saudi society challenging. The documentation that Rachel attempted to create about her circumstances was discovered and destroyed, with severe consequences for her violation of privacy agreements and cultural protocols that were designed to protect the family's reputation and maintain the security of their private affairs from outside interference. Investigation. Call to action. Diese Herzerreißende Geschichte seit die tödlichen Gefahren hinter Luxus und falschen Versprechungen. Wenn Sie mehr über solche schockierenden Fälle erfahren möchten und lernen wollen, wie man die Warnzeichen erkennt, abonnieren Sie unseren Kanal und aktivieren Sie die Benachrichtigungen. Denn Wissen kann Leben retten. The systematic escalation of Prince Faisal's control over Rachel's life reached a critical point when her attempts to contact her family during Thanksgiving were discovered and punished through confinement to her room for 2 weeks, during which she was allowed no communication with the outside world and minimal contact with the household staff who had been instructed to monitor her behavior and report any signs of resistance or non-cooperation to their employer. The psychological evaluation that was conducted by a private physician, supposedly to assess Rachel's mental health and adjustment progress, was actually designed to document symptoms that could be used to justify her eventual commitment to a private psychiatric facility where her death could be attributed to suicide or mental illness rather than murder, providing Prince Faisal with legal protection and public sympathy as the victim of a troubled woman's instability. The escape attempt that Rachel made during a supervised shopping trip to a Jeddah mall was thwarted by the security team that had been prepared for such an eventuality, resulting in her immediate return to the compound and implementation of even more restrictive measures that included 24-hour surveillance and the removal of all personal items that might be used for self-harm or communication with potential rescuers. The intervention by American consular officials who had been contacted by Rachel's family was diplomatically deflected through explanations about her voluntary religious conversion and cultural adjustment process, with documentation suggesting that she was a willing participant in her education and integration, rather than a prisoner being held against her will by someone whose wealth and political connections provided protection from investigation. The staff members within Prince Faisal's household, who witnessed Rachel's deteriorating condition and the escalating violence she experienced, were bound by employment contracts that included severe penalties for disclosure of private family matters, creating a conspiracy of silence that protected Prince Faisal from accountability, while ensuring that potential witnesses to his crimes would not cooperate with any future investigations. The final weeks of Rachel's life were marked by a complete breakdown in her physical and mental health, as the combination of psychological abuse, physical violence, and systematic isolation created a state of learned helplessness that made resistance seem futile and escape impossible. Despite the desperate messages she managed to smuggle out through sympathetic household staff who risked their own safety to help her. The medical crisis that would eventually lead to Rachel's death began with what appeared to be a suicide attempt involving prescription medications that had been provided to her for treatment of depression and anxiety that were attributed to her difficulty adjusting to Saudi culture rather than recognized as responses to systematic abuse and captivity that had destroyed her sense of hope and personal agency. Colonel Nasser Haddad, the Saudi investigator assigned to Rachel's case, faced immediate pressure from superior officers to classify her death as suicide and close the investigation without conducting the thorough forensic analysis that might have revealed evidence of foul play or systematic abuse that could implicate Prince Faisal in criminal activities that would embarrass the royal family and create diplomatic complications. The autopsy that was conducted revealed injuries and medical conditions that were inconsistent with suicide, but were attributed to self-inflicted harm and pre-existing mental health issues in the official report that was designed to protect Prince Faisal from prosecution, while providing a narrative that would discourage further investigation by American authorities or international human rights organizations. The disposal of Rachel's personal belongings and the systematic destruction of evidence from her time in Saudi Arabia was conducted with professional efficiency that suggested extensive experience with similar situations, indicating that Rachel's case was not unique, but rather part of a pattern of abuse and murder that had been successfully concealed through wealth, political influence, and systematic obstruction of justice. The notification of Rachel's family about her death was conducted through diplomatic channels that emphasized the tragic nature of her suicide, while discouraging requests for independent investigation or repatriation of her body for forensic examination that might reveal evidence contradicting the official narrative about the circumstances of her death. The investigation that Thomas Morgan initiated through private detectives and international lawyers revealed the systematic obstruction that protected Prince Faisal from accountability, while also uncovering evidence that Rachel was not his first Western victim to die under suspicious circumstances that were officially attributed to suicide or accidental death, but showed patterns consistent with systematic abuse and potential murder. The diplomatic pressure that was applied through congressional representatives and State Department officials was met with polite but firm resistance from Saudi authorities, who emphasized the importance of respecting local jurisdiction, cultural sensitivities, while maintaining that Rachel's case had been thoroughly investigated and properly resolved through appropriate legal channels. The media coverage that Rachel's case attracted brought international attention to the broader issue of Western women who disappeared or died under suspicious circumstances while involved in relationships with wealthy Middle Eastern men, highlighting systematic problems in diplomatic protection and international cooperation when investigating crimes involving politically connected suspects. The forensic analysis that was eventually conducted on limited evidence that had been preserved by sympathetic staff members revealed traces of substances that were not consistent with suicide by prescription drug overdose, but rather suggested the use of exotic compounds that could cause death while mimicking natural or self-inflicted causes, providing the first concrete evidence that Rachel had been murdered rather than having taken her own life. The international legal team that Thomas Morgan assembled faced unprecedented challenges in pursuing justice across jurisdictional boundaries, while confronting the wealth and political influence that protected Prince Faisal from prosecution, creating a case study in the limitations of international law when confronting crimes committed by powerful individuals against foreign nationals. The testimony from former household staff who had escaped Saudi Arabia revealed systematic patterns of abuse against multiple Western women who had been lured to Prince Faisal's compound through romantic manipulation, with many former residents having died under circumstances that were officially attributed to suicide, accidental death, or mental illness, but showed remarkable consistency in their progression from isolation to abuse to death. The psychological profile that was developed for Prince Faisal, based on witness testimony and behavior analysis, revealed classic characteristics of a serial killer who specialized in targeting vulnerable women through sophisticated manipulation while using his wealth and social position to avoid accountability for crimes that he had been committing for years with apparent impunity. The international cooperation that was required for investigating Prince Faisal's crimes was hampered by diplomatic considerations and economic relationships that made governments reluctant to pursue cases that might damage important strategic partnerships, highlighting the vulnerability of individual citizens when their victimization occurred in contexts involving broader national interests. The victim advocacy movement that grew from Rachel's case included specialized organizations dedicated to protecting women from international relationship scams and providing support for families seeking justice across international boundaries when their loved ones were victimized by wealthy and politically connected criminals. The legislative initiatives that were prompted by Rachel's case included enhanced protections for American citizens traveling abroad, improved consular services for families of victims, and strengthened cooperation agreements between law enforcement agencies that would facilitate investigation and prosecution of crimes involving American victims and foreign perpetrators with significant political influence. The ongoing investigation revealed connections between Prince Faisal and other wealthy individuals who participated in networks that specialized in exploiting Western women through romantic manipulation, suggesting that Rachel's case was part of a larger criminal enterprise that operated across international boundaries while using wealth and political influence to avoid accountability. The breakthrough in the case came when a former member of Prince Faisal's security team, who had fled Saudi Arabia and sought asylum in Canada, provided detailed testimony about the systematic abuse and murder of Western women that he had witnessed during his employment, including specific information about Rachel's death and the cover-up that had followed her murder. The evidence that the whistleblower provided included photographs, documents, and recordings that had been secretly preserved, despite the systematic destruction of evidence that followed each victim's death, creating a comprehensive record of criminal activity that could support international prosecution efforts, despite the diplomatic and legal obstacles that protected Prince Faisal within Saudi Arabia. The international arrest warrant that was eventually issued through Interpol represented a significant victory for victim advocacy groups and international law enforcement cooperation, though Prince Faisal's continued residence within Saudi Arabia and his family's political influence made actual apprehension and extradition extremely unlikely without unprecedented diplomatic pressure and legal innovation. The civil litigation that Thomas Morgan initiated in American courts faced jurisdictional challenges, but ultimately succeeded in establishing legal precedents for holding foreign nationals accountable for crimes against American citizens, while also creating mechanisms for asset seizure and financial compensation that could provide some measure of justice even when criminal prosecution proved impossible. The international media coverage of the evidence and legal proceedings brought sustained attention to the systematic exploitation and murder of Western women by wealthy Middle Eastern men, creating pressure for enhanced diplomatic protection and international cooperation in cases involving politically connected suspects who had previously operated with apparent impunity. The diplomatic consequences of the case included strained relationships between the United States and Saudi Arabia, as American officials demanded access to evidence and witnesses that Saudi authorities refused to provide, highlighting fundamental conflicts between national sovereignty and international justice that complicated efforts to protect citizens from crimes committed by foreign nationals with political influence. The psychological impact of learning the truth about Rachel's death was devastating for her family and friends, who had to process not only their grief over her loss, but also the horrifying realization that her dreams of luxury and romance had been systematically exploited to facilitate her captivity, abuse, and eventual murder by someone she had trusted completely. The victim support services that were established in response to Rachel's case provided specialized assistance for families dealing with similar international crime situations, addressing the unique challenges faced by relatives who needed to navigate complex legal systems while also processing trauma and grief that were complicated by the public nature of international criminal proceedings. The educational initiatives that emerged from the case included programs designed to warn potential victims about the sophisticated manipulation techniques used by wealthy predators who exploited social media and dating platforms to identify vulnerable women who could be lured into dangerous situations through promises of luxury and romance that masked intentions of abuse and exploitation. The policy changes that were implemented included enhanced screening procedures for American citizens traveling to high-risk countries, improved coordination between law enforcement agencies and diplomatic services, and strengthened victim protection protocols that addressed the specific vulnerabilities faced by individuals who became involved in relationships with wealthy foreign nationals. The ongoing international cooperation efforts included enhanced intelligence sharing between countries and improved protocols for investigating crimes involving politically connected suspects who operated across international boundaries, while using wealth and influence to avoid accountability for serious criminal activities, including systematic abuse and murder. The establishment of the Rachel Morgan Foundation represented Thomas Morgan's transformation from grieving father to international advocate for victims of relationship-based international crimes, creating a permanent institution dedicated to protecting vulnerable women from exploitation, while also supporting families who had lost loved ones to crimes involving wealthy and politically connected perpetrators who operated across international boundaries. The International Conference on Relationship-Based International Crime that the Foundation sponsored annually brought together survivors, law enforcement officials, researchers, and policymakers from around the world to share knowledge about criminal techniques, while also developing more effective prevention strategies and victim protection services that address the unique challenges posed by crimes involving wealthy suspects with political influence. The research initiatives that the Foundation funded contributed to enhanced understanding of the psychological manipulation techniques used by wealthy predators, while also advancing knowledge about effective prevention strategies and therapeutic interventions for individuals who might be vulnerable to exploitation through promises of luxury and romance that masked systematic abuse and potential murder. The victim support services that the Foundation operated included specialized counseling for families affected by international relationship crimes, legal assistance for navigating complex international legal proceedings, and practical guidance for individuals who needed help, recognizing and avoiding dangerous relationship situations involving wealthy foreign nationals with potentially violent intentions. The educational materials that the Foundation produced provided practical information about recognizing warning signs of international relationship scams, while also raising awareness about the sophisticated psychological manipulation techniques used by wealthy predators to identify and exploit vulnerable women who were seeking escape from financial limitations or unsatisfying personal circumstances. The policy advocacy that the Foundation undertook included support for enhanced protections for Americans in international relationships, improved cooperation between law enforcement agencies across different countries, and strengthened victim support services that address the unique challenges faced by individuals who were exploited through promises of wealth and luxury that concealed systematic abuse and murder. The corporate consulting services that the Foundation provided included risk assessment and safety planning for individuals and organizations involved in international business or personal relationships, with particular focus on identifying potential dangers and developing strategies for maintaining safety while pursuing legitimate international opportunities. The international cooperation initiatives that the Foundation supported included enhanced intelligence sharing between countries and improved protocols for protecting foreign nationals who might be targeted by sophisticated criminals operating in international contexts where wealth and political connections could provide protection from prosecution and accountability. The psychological treatment protocols that were developed through Foundation research provided specialized approaches for helping families recover from losses involving both deception and violence, while also addressing the cultural and social factors that could make certain individuals vulnerable to exploitation by predators who understood how to exploit desires for luxury and social advancement. The media initiatives that the Foundation supported included responsible journalism guidelines for reporting on international relationship, crime cases, and educational documentaries that provided awareness about the risks, while also honoring the memory of victims who had been exploited through their desires for love, security, and improved social and economic circumstances. The legislative achievements that resulted from the Foundation's advocacy work included enhanced penalties for international relationship crimes, improved victim compensation programs, and strengthened cooperation requirements that facilitated investigation and prosecution of crimes involving American victims and foreign perpetrators operating with wealth and political protection. The 10th anniversary of Rachel Morgan's murder marked a significant milestone in international efforts to combat relationship-based crimes targeting Western women, with the Foundation established in her memory, having become a globally recognized leader in victim advocacy, research funding, and policy development that had contributed to meaningful improvements in protection services and law enforcement capabilities. The technological innovations that had been developed through Foundation-funded research included advanced screening algorithms for international dating platforms and early warning systems that could identify potentially dangerous relationship patterns before they escalated to serious abuse or murder, providing tools that could help protect vulnerable individuals while also supporting legitimate international relationships. The international law enforcement cooperation that had been essential for investigating Prince Faisal's crimes had evolved into permanent frameworks for combating international relationship crimes, with specialized units in multiple countries sharing intelligence and coordinating operations that had disrupted numerous criminal networks, while also establishing protocols for protecting vulnerable foreign nationals. The victim support services that had been enhanced in response to Rachel's case continued to provide specialized assistance for individuals and families affected by international relationship crimes, while also contributing to enhanced understanding of effective therapeutic interventions that help survivors rebuild their capacity for trust and authentic relationships after experiencing systematic manipulation and abuse. The educational impact of Rachel's story extended far beyond formal prevention programs to include widespread public awareness about the dangers of international relationships involving significant wealth and power imbalances, and the importance of maintaining supportive relationships that could provide objective perspectives when romantic involvement might be clouding judgment about potential risks. The policy changes that the Foundation's advocacy had helped achieve continued to influence victim protection measures and law enforcement cooperation, while also establishing legal precedents for prosecuting international relationship crimes and providing compensation for families who had lost loved ones to crimes involving wealthy and politically connected perpetrators. The psychological research that had grown out of Rachel's case continued to advance understanding of manipulation techniques used by wealthy predators, while also contributing to enhanced knowledge about resilience factors and recovery, and strategies that could help both potential victims recognize dangerous situations and survivors rebuild their lives after experiencing systematic abuse. The corporate partnerships that the Foundation had established continued to produce innovative solutions for international safety and risk assessment, while also providing resources for legitimate businesses and cultural exchange programs that needed to balance security concerns with authentic opportunities for international relationship building and economic development. The diplomatic relationships that had been affected by Rachel's case continued to evolve as governments worked to balance national interests with international cooperation in criminal justice, creating ongoing tensions that highlighted the challenges faced by individual victims when their cases involved broader political and economic considerations. The ongoing monitoring of criminal networks revealed that while specific cases like Prince Faisal's had been exposed, similar predators continued to operate using adapted techniques while exploiting new technologies and social platforms, highlighting the continued relevance of the prevention strategies and support systems that had been developed in response to Rachel's murder. The psychological treatment protocols that had been developed through Foundation research continued to provide specialized approaches for helping families recover from losses involving both deception and violence, while also addressing the unique challenges faced by parents whose adult children had been victimized through their desires for love, security, and social advancement. The impact of Rachel Morgan's case on international diplomacy and law enforcement cooperation had created lasting changes in how governments approached crimes involving their citizens and wealthy foreign nationals, establishing new protocols for diplomatic intervention and international cooperation that balanced respect for sovereignty with protection of vulnerable individuals who might be targeted by predators with significant political influence. The research network that had been established through the Foundation continued to generate valuable insights about international relationship crimes, while also contributing to enhanced understanding of the psychological and social factors that made individuals vulnerable to exploitation by wealthy predators, who used promises of luxury and romance to facilitate systematic abuse and potential murder. The victim advocacy movement that had grown from Rachel's case included specialized organizations in multiple countries that provided support for families dealing with international crime situations, creating a global network of resources and expertise that could assist with the complex legal, diplomatic, and emotional challenges faced by relatives of victims who had been exploited by wealthy and politically connected criminals. The educational initiatives that had been developed through the Foundation's work continued to reach thousands of potential victims through social media campaigns, university programs, and community outreach efforts, that provided practical information about recognizing manipulation techniques, while also raising awareness about the specific risks associated with international relationships involving significant wealth and power imbalances. The technological solutions that had been funded through Foundation research continued to provide enhanced safety tools for individuals involved in international relationships, while also supporting legitimate cultural exchange and business opportunities by helping users distinguish between authentic and manipulative communications across cultural and economic boundaries. The policy advocacy that continued through the Foundation's work included ongoing efforts to strengthen international cooperation agreements, enhance victim protection services, and improve diplomatic responses to cases involving American citizens who were victimized by foreign nationals with significant wealth and political influence that could complicate traditional law enforcement approaches. The psychological research that had been inspired by Rachel's case continued to advance understanding of how desires for luxury and social advancement could be exploited by sophisticated predators, while also contributing to enhanced knowledge about therapeutic interventions that could help both potential victims develop better judgment about risky relationships and survivors recover from systematic manipulation and abuse. The corporate partnerships that the Foundation maintained continued to produce innovative solutions for international safety and security, while also supporting legitimate business and cultural exchange programs that required balancing risk management with authentic opportunities for beneficial international relationship building and economic development. The international cooperation efforts that had been established through Rachel's case continued to facilitate beneficial collaboration between law enforcement agencies, while also supporting diplomatic relationships that balanced national sovereignty with international justice and victim protection in cases involving wealthy and politically connected perpetrators. The ongoing impact of the Foundation's work extended beyond individual protection to include systematic improvements in international cooperation, victim support, and crime prevention that continued to evolve in response to new criminal techniques while maintaining focus on the human cost of crimes that exploited desires for love, security, and social advancement. The Memorial Scholarship Program that had been established in Rachel's honor provided educational opportunities for young women pursuing careers in international relations and victim advocacy, while also supporting research into relationship-based crime prevention and cross-cultural communication that could help reduce vulnerabilities that made individuals susceptible to exploitation. The transformation of Jessica Lane, from concerned friend to internationally recognized expert in relationship-based crime prevention, represented one of the most powerful legacies of Rachel's tragic case, as the woman who had tried unsuccessfully to warn her friend channeled her guilt and grief into meaningful work that protected other vulnerable individuals from similar exploitation by wealthy predators who used promises of luxury and romance to facilitate systematic abuse. The international speaking engagements that Jessica undertook brought unique perspectives to conferences and educational programs, where her first-hand knowledge of Rachel's psychological transformation provided insights that could not be gained through academic study alone, while also demonstrating the importance of maintaining supportive friendships that could provide objective advice when romantic involvement might be compromising judgment about potential dangers. The research collaborations that both Thomas Morgan and Jessica participated in with academic institutions contributed to enhanced understanding of the long-term impact of relationship-based international crimes, while also advancing knowledge about effective prevention strategies and support systems that could help potential victims recognize manipulation techniques before becoming fully exploited by sophisticated predators with substantial resources. The policy advocacy that had grown from their personal experiences included support for enhanced protections for American citizens in international relationships, improved diplomatic cooperation in cases involving wealthy foreign suspects, and strengthened educational programs that could help potential victims understand the risks associated with relationships that seemed too good to be true. The victim support network that had developed around their foundation's work provided ongoing assistance for individuals and families affected by international relationship crimes, while also creating advocacy platforms that maintain pressure for continued improvements in prevention, investigation, and prosecution of sophisticated crimes that exploited desires for love and luxury. The technological initiatives that the Foundation supported included development of artificial intelligence systems that could identify potential victims of international relationship crimes and provide early warnings about dangerous relationship patterns, while also supporting legitimate international relationships by helping users distinguish between authentic and manipulative communications across cultural and economic boundaries. The educational materials that had been developed through their advocacy work continued to provide valuable information about recognizing international relationship crimes, while also reducing stigma associated with victimization by sophisticated criminals who exploited normal human desires for love, security, and social advancement through carefully crafted manipulation techniques. The corporate partnerships that the Foundation maintained continued to produce innovative solutions for international safety and security, while also supporting legitimate business and cultural exchange programs that needed to balance risk management with authentic opportunities for beneficial international relationship building and economic development. The psychological research that had been inspired by their case continued to advance understanding of how desires for luxury and social status could be exploited by wealthy predators, while also contributing to enhanced knowledge about therapeutic interventions that could help survivors rebuild their capacity for trust and authentic emotional connection after experiencing systematic manipulation and abuse. The ongoing impact of their advocacy work extended beyond individual protection to include systematic improvements in international cooperation, victim support, and relationship crime prevention that continued to evolve in response to new criminal techniques while maintaining focus on the human cost of crimes that exploited normal desires for love, security, and social advancement. The diplomatic initiatives that had been prompted by their case continued to influence international cooperation and victim protection efforts, creating ongoing discussions about how to balance national sovereignty with international justice. When wealthy and politically connected individuals committed crimes against foreign nationals who lacked equivalent resources and political protection, the Memorial Foundation's continued work demonstrated that individual tragedies could be transformed into lasting positive change through sustained advocacy and international cooperation, creating protective systems and awareness programs that would benefit future generations of potential victims, while also honoring the memory of those who had been lost to crimes involving wealthy predators who exploited desires for luxury and romance. 10 years after Rachel Morgan's murder in Saudi Arabia at the hands of Prince Faisal Al Mansour, her story continues to serve as both a tragic warning about the deadly consequences of international relationship crimes and an inspiring example of how personal loss can be transformed into meaningful advocacy that protects other vulnerable individuals from exploitation by wealthy predators who use promises of luxury and romance to facilitate systematic abuse and murder. The Rachel Morgan Foundation has become an internationally recognized institution that has directly assisted over 800 families, while also funding research and policy initiatives that have contributed to systematic improvements in relationship, crime prevention, victim protection, and international law enforcement cooperation across multiple countries and cultural contexts. The legislative changes that their advocacy helped achieve have been adopted across numerous jurisdictions and have contributed to more effective prosecution of international relationship crimes, while also providing enhanced resources for victims and their families who need support navigating complex legal systems and recovery processes that are complicated by international boundaries and diplomatic considerations. The international law enforcement cooperation that was essential for exposing Prince Faisal's crimes has evolved into permanent frameworks for combating relationship-based international crimes, with specialized units sharing intelligence and coordinating operations that have disrupted hundreds of criminal networks, while also establishing protocols for protecting vulnerable foreign nationals from systematic exploitation. The victim support services that were enhanced in response to Rachel's case continue to provide specialized assistance for individuals and families affected by international relationship crimes, while also contributing to enhanced understanding of effective therapeutic interventions that help survivors rebuild their capacity for trust and authentic relationships after experiencing sophisticated manipulation and systematic abuse. The technological innovations that have resulted from foundation-funded research continue to provide enhanced safety tools for individuals involved in international relationships, while also supporting legitimate cultural exchange and business opportunities by helping users identify potentially dangerous relationship patterns before they escalate to serious abuse or violence. The psychological research that has grown out of Rachel's case continues to advance understanding of how desires for luxury and social advancement can be exploited by sophisticated predators while also contributing to enhanced knowledge about resilience factors and prevention strategies that help potential victims recognize dangerous situations before becoming fully victimized. Jessica Lane's development into a leading expert in relationship crime prevention has provided a model for channeling personal trauma into professional expertise that protects others, while also demonstrating the importance of maintaining supportive relationships that can provide objective perspectives when romantic involvement might be compromising judgment about potential risks and dangers. The ongoing impact of their advocacy work extends beyond individual protection to include systematic improvements in international cooperation, victim support, and crime prevention that continue to evolve in response to new criminal techniques while maintaining focus on the human cost of crimes that exploit normal desires for love, security, and social advancement. The story of Rachel Morgan serves as a permanent reminder that while the pursuit of love, luxury, and social advancement represents natural human desires, these aspirations must be balanced with awareness of the sophisticated predators who exploit such normal needs to facilitate devastating crimes that can destroy lives and families across international boundaries. Her legacy lives on through the thousands of potential victims who have been protected by the awareness programs her family's advocacy made possible, the hundreds of survivors who have received support through their foundation's services, and the systematic improvements in law enforcement and victim protection that emerged from their comprehensive response to personal tragedy, ensuring that her death was ultimately transformed into lasting positive change that continues to benefit vulnerable individuals worldwide.